So think of all your hard questions for the author. Okay, so let's move on to the first session. Today marks a monumental milestone for any author. My dad has put in a lot of midnight oil, so I'm very, very proud of him today. And witnessing the evolution of this book and being able to have a sneak peek into it, I can truly say that some of the learnings can be applied in the corporate world, and I myself work as a product manager at Deloitte for over 5 years now, and I've taken a lot of what I've read from the book into my own sort of daily life. And for those of you pondering what the term consciouspreneur means, I'll let my dad give you more insight into that. So without further ado, I'll introduce Mr. Manoj Gupta. So who is he? He's an accomplished transformation technology and business leader. He's got over 30 years of experience across the corporate world. He's held a variety of leadership roles in building strategy, leading large businesses, customer relationships, and M&As. He played a key role at Tata Consultancy Services and HCL in their growth journey to achieve the $10 billion milestone. Most recently, he was an MD and exec member at Qualitas Group, an AI-led engineering company. And some of you may have read his previous book, New York to New You, which was a bestseller. And it covers 3 M's: management, motivation, and mindfulness, along the topics of business and leadership. He strongly believes in empowering people, and his passion to innovate has changed several businesses around the world. And his book, The Consciouspreneur, which we're unveiling today, is about creating a new breed of leaders, those who are rich with mind and rich with money. So without further ado, I'd like to invite him to the stage.
Thank you, Harshita. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Yep. Over to you for chief guest.
Yeah, let me also introduce the chief guest of the evening, Mr. Amish Tripathi. So Amish is an author, diplomat, and TV documentary host. In a former life, he was a senior financial services executive, and he's the fastest-selling author in Indian publishing history. He's written 10 books, both fiction and non-fiction, since 2010, which have sold 6.5 million copies and have been translated into 20 Indian and international languages. Forbes India has regularly ranked him as the top most 100 influential celebrities in India. In his diplomatic role, Amish works as the Minister of Culture and Education at the Indian High Commission and to the UK, and the director of the Nehru Centre in London, which we hear today. So could you do the honours of inviting me?
Amish, it's such a pleasure and honor. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and honor. Yeah. Yeah.
Do we unveil a book or something?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. 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 Yes.
This is relatively easy unpacking.
Harshita.
Yeah.
It's such a pleasure and honor, and Amish, your presence makes such a huge difference to this. May I request you to please speak a few words, please.
Namaste, everyone. How many of you are coming to the Nehru Center for the first time? Oh, wow, practically everyone. All right. So we are technically a part of the Indian High Commission. I say this to whoever comes here. You are technically on Indian soil. Welcome to India. I met Manoj, I think a year back, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, a year back in Slough. And the thing which got me about him was very clearly he's a good manager, smart organizer, plan. I saw that doing the planning for this event as well. But what was a surprise is he's also a deep thinker. And as I was telling Andy, that's a very rare combination. Normally you get deep thinkers, but they tend to be scattered and all over the place. That's a tendency of deep thinkers. Or you get good organizers. It's very rare to find both. And therefore, I'm not surprised he's picked up a subject such as this and a book such as Consciouspreneur, because this is in to use a Dickensian term, it is in a way the best of times and in a way the worst of times. The technologies that we've been blessed with over the last few decades and what is leading to the fourth industrial revolution, in many ways they are of course a blessing. If you could time travel back and speak to someone who lived 150 years ago, the fact that we have all the knowledge in the world in the palm of our hand with that phone, we'd appear like gods, right? The fact that we can talk to anyone anywhere in the world, we'd appear like gods to them. But those technologies are of course a blessing, they're also a curse at the same time. The stress of being connected all the time is so visible now. We are blessed with many things. You know, much of the stuff that we desire are usually within an arm's length now. Still doesn't give us happiness and peace. And how do you balance the challenges and the opportunities of this era, where the world increasingly expects more and more productivity from us. The world increasingly expects us, all of us in many ways, and the era of lifetime jobs, that's gone. I've had 4 careers in my lifetime. I used to be a banker, and then I became a full-time author. Now I'm also a diplomat, while continuing to be an author, and I'm also a documentary host. And I'm not that out of the ordinary. There are many people who have multiple careers now within one lifetime. This can be an opportunity, this can be a challenge. What does it do to your internal world, to your personal relationships, to your spiritual energy? And which is where a book such as this, where he's very creatively used, and he calls it creative non-fiction. I thought it's narrative non-fiction. Essentially, speaking of non-fiction, a non-fiction subject, non-fiction philosophies, but in an easy to understand way, not in a textbookish manner. And that was deeply insightful. I think this book is a rocker. Those of you who haven't bought it and read it, please do, and do speak to your friends. Manoj, congratulations, and I look forward to standing in line for your next book for an autograph.
Such a pleasure. Anish, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Any words from you?
Yep.
Oh, damn. Sorry.
It's all right.
I'm keeping this.
Yes. So thank you, Amish. Such a pleasure, whatever you spoke about. See, one thing, for some of us over here, Amish, this is his last working day or day here in UK, so I'm so glad that he could make it today, and he has a flight back to India tomorrow morning. So he would be taking excuse from us a bit early, but having you over here is such a pleasure. So what Amish said and where I'm coming from about this book is, see, in the process of looking good in our external world, which is more of the professional as well as the social world, we compromise a lot to our internal world, right? So we have an outer world which is professional as well as social, and we have an internal world which is our personal world and our spiritual world. So the consciouspreneur is a new terminology, a new thinking, elevated thinking, the way I call it, is how do you balance, right? We all talk about work-life balance, but how much we implement it. This is all what I'm bringing in the form of this book. There is a little video which we will play, which goes about as a part of my journey, right, into this. But essentially, by virtue of being in corporate world for over 30 years, one thing which I have realized, that we all try to look so good in our external world, but we in that process so much of compromising our internal world. And is that the right thing which we should be looking at or doing? And this is not the book, but it is much beyond the book which I want to talk about. We'll talk about this in a bit, but because the book has been unveiled, and I know Harshita would be now putting me into a pause mode, right? Is that what? So over to you first, then.
Okay. So I will play the 3-minute video, which talks about how the Consciouspreneur came about.
This.
It's just loading.
You can help Harshita. What is it?
Oh, it disconnected.
Manoj, it's good to see you've got an IT security check.
Yes, that's right.
We're on Indian soil. I wouldn't want to be.
You have to enable the content here, just.
Yeah. Yeah? Okay. Just want to play it in YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah?
The world is going through the most exciting phase of transition. I call it the Golden Age. Having done intense research of over 2 decades, I'm on a mission to help millions of people to become consciouspreneur, the leaders for the new age. These are the people who are rich with mind and rich with money. In my corporate career of over 30 years, I've traveled all around the world, and in this process, I've had a privilege to meet people from various diversities, cultures, religions, beliefs, and practices. While these people had different levels of intellect, intelligence, and emotional quotients, I notice a common set of questions and curiosities largely around these 3 topics. Number 1, why there is so much corruption, dishonesty, fear, anxiety around the world? And for that matter, why was this world created? When was it created and from where? And if God created it, why didn't He make it a happy place all around? Number 2, a debate around religion versus science. And number 3, the link between human energy and cosmic energy. This book, The Consciouspreneur, has answers to all these curiosities and questions. It takes you on a journey through 7 countries around the world, uncovering the sights and smells of various cultures to answer these big questions. But you might be thinking, why should you and I care about this now? There is a reason. The world is changing thick and fast. It has stepped into the 4th industrial revolution. This industrial revolution is very different from the previous 3. The prior 3 industrial revolutions brought the changes to the way we were doing things, but the current one changes us. This is an era of merging cyber, physical and digital boundaries. This new age comes with its new set of challenges and opportunities, creating more dynamism in the external world and a larger rippling effect in our internal worlds. Technology, science, spirituality, religion, leadership, they seem to be very distinct spheres in our lives, but are they? I believe as all these different realms of technology, science, spirituality, religion and leadership moves into the future with limitless possibilities, one thing that will stand out is human consciousness. For me, those who become aware of it will be the future game changers. I call them consciouspreneurs. So, join me in this golden age revolution. This is the best time in the history of the world to make an impact. And once you are on this journey, there is no turning back, and you will feel it just the way I felt. You will do it for the rest of your life. I promote the golden age, and I need your help. We have a lot of work to do, and the world is waiting for us. So friends, let's march ahead together.
with this, let's go through a few slides which talks about the consciouspreneur. Why is it something which is so close to my heart? Why is it so much I am convinced about this particular subject? So I'll start with this. Consciousness is the creative element of the universe. Without this, nothing would appear. This is the statement from famous quantum physicist, and many of you would be heard his name, Fred Alan Wolf. Now, why is it something which is so important, what he said? And let's look at scenarios or simple aspects. Let's look at something where I talk about, which we all see the movies, right? And for a movie to happen, what are three things we need? We need a screen, isn't it? For a movie to happen, we need a screen. We also need films, right? And last but not the least, we need a projector, right? So when the film moves very fast under the light of projector, the movie on a screen which appears as a solid seeming world happens on the screen, which takes all our emotions, whether it's the joy, the laugh, the horror, the sorrow, and so on and so forth. And when you come out of the movie, that's over. But during that process, during that moment, there is a solid seeming world which happens in front of us. Now, from here, if I move to life, for life to happen, what are those 2 or 3 things which are very critical? One is brain, right? We all have brains which captures the images and which projects it to the world. I call it as a transmission station, right? It's a transmission station which simply captures the images and gives a feeling of the world to us. We also require thoughts, because brain is there, but unless and until there are thoughts which brain can understand and then picturize, the world will not happen or the life will not happen. And the third thing which is required is the consciousness, right? So I went back to, or I'll go back to the movie aspect. When the thoughts, or when the fast moving thoughts flows through the light of consciousness, the life happens. It is exactly similar to what I spoke about the movie. When the fast moving film goes through the light of projector, the solid seeming screen shows or projects the cinema to us. Now why I'm talking about this? There's a reason now again. Now if I take about one component from here, which is brain. If I take about brain from here, the person will be in the state of coma or semi-coma, but world will still exist. Body will still function. Thoughts will still be there, but that individual may not communicate to the external world. Now, if I take out the thoughts for a minute, when I take out the thoughts in these 3 elements, you are either in the state of deep meditation, which is called thoughtless thoughts, or in the state of deep sleep, where you are in a state of nothingness, but world is there, right? But if I take out consciousness, everything is finished. The moment I take out consciousness, the body and thoughts, nothing matters. It is exactly similar to, you can have the film in place, you can have the screen in place, but if you do not have that projector, below which the continuous flow of that films happen, the movie will not play. This is exactly the movie which we are witnessing in our lives. And this goes back to my first slide, which was consciousness is the creative element of the universe. Without it, nothing would appear. You can have thoughts, you can have brain, you can have mind, but without consciousness, things will not happen. Now, if I move further, once the life has happened, where does life revolves? So life revolves around these four, which is two worlds. We have an outer world and we have an internal world, right? And your outer world is our professional world and your social world. Right? In professional world, each one of us want to look as productive as possible. And in our social world, we would like to look at as dynamic as possible. When it comes to our internal world, which is your personal and spiritual, we are looking for happiness. Happiness is very different from success, right? Happiness is very different from success, guys, okay? While people do mix up, in the process of chasing happiness, they go for success and they find it a problem. And then there's a spiritual world. A spiritual world is all about stability of your mind, the peace at your mind. Now, the life revolves around only these four quadrants or these two worlds. Yeah. Now, why I'm again connecting and talking on these? Because, as I said in that video, right, we are talking about those three industrial revolutions, right? The first industrial revolution was all about steam, 1760s or so. What it gave, it all of a sudden gave all of us so much of power, steam power, to carry things from one place to another, right? There were rails, lines which got laid out all across, crisscross in the countries all around the world. Fast moving 100 years. There was second industrial revolution which happened around 1860s or 1870s. That further gave immense power to all of us. Electricity came, and electricity with that famous quote or Henry Ford, that assembly line started, and world moved into a different level of effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. Fast forward 100 years again. Third industrial revolution happened somewhere about 1960s or 1970s. That was microprocessor. That brought in electronics and nuclear to the center stage. And entire life, again, productivity catapulted. Right? But now we have stepped up into something which is Industry 4.0. This one is era of cyber, physical, and digital merger. This is very different. The previous three industry revolutions brought the change the way we were doing things. But this one changes us. This is very, very different. And that's where I bring it. That focus has to be holistic. The focus cannot be just on the outer world, or the focus cannot be only on the internal world. It has to be holistic. And that's where consciouspreneur as a concept. I'm not talking of consciouspreneur as a theory. I'm not talking just as a philosophy. I am talking something. This is our life. This is my life. You are leading your life. Are you living? It's the question. As Amish said a bit before, he has had 4 or 5 careers. And there are people who are choosing and following their passions and doing things what they want to do. Right? Life is very short, guys. Right? No, if I move forward, this book is not just a book. This is certainly more than a book. And I tell you why do I say so. We have also launched Consciouspreneur.net. This is a community where I'm visualizing and envisioning this as a very different world. And if I just give you a glimpse of how is it, so you go to the website, you will see the home page, then there is clearly the journey about it. Yes, sir? Oh, it's not coming over here? How do I bring it? You can switch on over here. You can get it live, the first one. Yeah, this is it. Sorry? Why? No, if you log on, this is there. If you just put on the browser, why can't we put a browser here? Can't you open a browser? Yeah. Where's the technician?
Manoj, if you try going to the individual slide and click on the link, not
Yeah.
on the screen, not on the slideshow, it might work.
It's not here? Okay. So how do I click it? Because it's on the mouse over here. So, okay. So as you can, so I can't use the flicker on this, right? Okay. And because of the screen resize, this might have an issue. So this is the website, and when I talk about the website, it is very clearly defined what are our vision, mission, values. There are resources, but more than that, we are inviting a community where we will be saying, if you join the hub, there are a number of things which you can do. There is an AI engine which have been put in terms of, for any person who has to, check their Consciouspreneur index. We call it, in the world of AI and BI, look for your CI, which is your Consciouspreneur index, right? So look at your Consciouspreneur index, okay, check it, and you will have received your individual scores. You will have an opportunity to do consultation, right? And there, the vision which I have as far as this Consciouspreneur community is, I am looking for creating this as a community, as a platform, where we will get into a zone of doing those face-to-face sessions. We'll be inviting some senior Consciouspreneurs to have that conversations along with the set of people who are aspiring to become one. And we are looking for creating this as something which I am envisioning is something where each one of us would start with a pride feeling that I want to say and I want to talk about myself as Consciouspreneur, similar to what people take a lot of pride in talking about or associating with TEDs of the world, TEDx or TED Talks. So that's where it is going in that direction, where we are saying, look guys, this is a world, this is an area, this is a zone, this is a time where things needs to be looked differently. Where the world is moving, it's all about not just competencies, it's about the cultural harmony, it's about the business priorities with people sensitivities. It's about looking at not just the profit and the margins, it is also about the purpose, it's also about the passion, it's also about the pride, it's also about the people overarching around it. So that's where we are going in this direction, and I would invite each one of you to join the Consciouspreneur Hub. The website is live. We will be making LinkedIn page live as well. A lot of work has already happened around this Consciouspreneur as a community. This page was tested this morning. It's all up and live. We'll be announcing this in a day or so. But as I said, this is more than a book. I am working towards this more as something which I clearly see each one of us need. Each one of us need. I am not saying it's a vanity. It's a need. People do not talk about this. People still speak or a bit shy about it, but we do compromise our internal world a lot in the process of looking beautiful, handsome, whatever, in our external world or so. And this one is something where we are saying, how do we harmonize? How do we navigate, not just with success, but with grace? How do we navigate, not with just success, or being, appearing proud, but humble as well is the aspect. So that's what is about Consciouspreneur. And yeah, I would certainly look forward for you to join. I think there is a panel session from here. Harshita, if I may hand it over to you, and if you can invite our esteemed panelists, and then we'll get into Q&A.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great session. So while our stage for the panel is being set up, I'll introduce the two panelists for this evening. So our two panelists are Mr. Rajiv Sahani and Mr. Andy Williams. So I'll introduce Mr. Rajiv Sahani first. So he's got over 40 years of experience in the IT industry, and he was a founding member at HCL Technologies, scaling it up and then departing as president in Europe. He played pivotal leadership roles in Emphasis and Zenzar's acquisition integration. Rajiv was then the chairman of the board of directors at Oxite, a spin-out from Oxford University, which invented life-changing AI and AR-powered glasses for people with sight loss. He's been a member of the task force at the World Economic Forum, a key panel member at Summer Davos, and several other influential forums. He's currently a board member and advisor for several companies, notably a FTSE 250 bank, TBC Bank Group. Now on to Andy. Andy is a chief technology officer, board advisor, and leadership coach with deep experience of optimizing digital and technology teams across extensive range of industries, business models, and geographies. He was also named #1 CIO in the UK in 2016. Andy is an inspirational people leader and passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So without further ado, I'll invite them all on stage. I will stand.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here today. So I'll start by asking you both. Rajiv, we'll start with you. So what are your views on the author and the book?
That's easy. I think Amish has already described Manoj, and so have you. And if you want to know a little bit more, perhaps you should look at LinkedIn. You'll have a leader with 30 years distinguished executive experience, a strategist, and a business operations manager. I can go on that. And that matches his profile pretty well from the way I knew him in over 100 interactions that I must have had in the course of about 12 years or so that we knew each other. And it was only recently that I got to know the real Manoj, and that was about 3 years ago when he launched his first book, and he sent me a manuscript to read and give my inputs on the stuff that he had written in there. And that was a blend of science and spirituality, and most importantly, it was relevant in the corporate world. And it resonated really well with me because it enhanced my life in a very significant way. For more than 40 years, I had never thought of anything called mindfulness. And it was a buzzword. You came across that in many events and many fora, but it never really resonated the way this book had a lasting impact in my life. Believe you me, it started as a very small step by doing some breathing exercises for a minute or two, and it has evolved into a full-fledged mindfulness session of about 30 minutes every single day for the last 3 years. Such was the lasting impact that Manoj's first book, New York to New You, had on me. And that's when I got to know that this is the real Manoj. So when you ask me about the author, Manoj, what you see in the LinkedIn is the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is Manoj. I think there was a follow-on question on that, which was about the book. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite amused to make this confession that I started reading this book in its manuscript form. Interestingly, the protagonist, the key character in the book is a guy called James. And the way the book has been written, it reminded me of a James Bond film, because the pace at which it moved, and you see in a James Bond film, there's a car chase that happens, and there are these volcanic events that happen, and there are all these exotic locales that you visit all around the world. And this James that is the protagonist in Consciouspreneur is pretty much in the same way, going from country to country, city to city, and it's moving at a blistering pace, this book. And it got me quite involved, and I was excited by this whole read. And then I realized that, this is moving at such a pace, and if you had zero imagination, you would still be able to see each of these locations that he has talked of in his book with ultra high definition kind of clarity. I mean, that is the kind of unsparing detail that he has gone into. You can almost smell the air, you can almost feel the place. That's the granularity with which he has written the entire description in each of these chapters and locations. So that was very exciting until it came to a point that it got a bit too profound. And then I was taken aback as to where have I got myself into. I think it might be easier to start doing a project and learning algorithms for doing an air traffic design in blockchain or something. That might be easier than trying to unravel the universe and look at what is E is equal to mc square. Rakesh, you'll bear me out on this. I've asked you many times, being a quantum physicist, and what is this theory of relativity that that we've gone into. And these were things that I didn't quite comprehend. And I had to refer to Google and ChatGPT and all of that to understand what all these things were. And this goes on. The book is very quick. In fact, very, very quick. It races on very well through the thing, until you see that there's so much depth. I mean, the depth of the thoughts that Manoj has got are deeper than the Mariana Trench. That's all I can tell you. And somehow, you step back and you say, maybe I should do a little more breathing exercises or go and do my prayers or something, and then come back and then press the reset and resume button and get on to completing it. And by the time you finish reading the book, that's when your heart stops pounding. And that's when the whole mosaic comes together and you can see the whole picture, and then you feel that you have actually gone through this. And then this James story just goes back into oblivion. And what comes in the forefront are those deep thoughts and reflections on who am I, why do I exist? And that is really the beginning of your journey to human engineering and consciousprenneurship. So I hope I haven't been too long, but this is my own reflection of what the book was. Was that your question?
Yeah. Much more detail than I thought, but
Okay.
it was great.
I have to give my true... sorry if I
Thank
took
you.
over long.
No. Andy, over to you.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'll take a slightly different perspective, slightly more selfishly, Manoj. I think you and I have known each other for a number of years now. And I thought about it. During that time, our relationship, I think, has gone through a couple of changes, maybe evolution, not revolution.
Yep.
And I think, it was pretty clear at the beginning. I started as a client.
Yes.
And I think we all understand what that means in everyday life. You're a client of Manoj, who is very organized. He does plan. And he's pretty good at trying to influence you to buy something. But in reality, most of my team were far smart enough to tell me when I should be buying from him and when I shouldn't. But so the relationship had to go somewhere else. And I think the next stage for me was another C word. We became connected. I think, you know, and if you look about the evolution of a relationship, it often starts with exchange of information. And at some point, you have to do some work together. You know, you co-create and you start to work on something and you build some trust. So we became connected. We started to work on some things together. We started to challenge some, may I say, sacred cows without upsetting anybody. The cultural reference is deliberate. Because a lot of what I do professionally is challenging sacred cows and trying to change people's perceptions. So Manoj became a connection for that. And then as we progressed through that, I'd like to think that we became collaborative. At some point throughout all of these things, there were two other C words that used to occupy our mind. One, of course, was a shared, I wouldn't say religion, but I would say philosophy or passion, which is cricket. So I certainly spent more of my Sundays as a child on a cricket field than I did in the church. I can't speak for you, Manoj, but we certainly spent a lot of our evenings talking occasionally about cricket, which is slightly painful for me, having watched the results the last couple of days. So kudos to the Indian nation, who I think will probably win the World Cup. Certainly England won't. But the other thing was, of course, curry. So we have a shared passion for food, and by eating good food and being curious, another C word,
Yes.
we found that the time would pass very, very quickly. And occasionally, he would sell me something and I would buy it. But that was never the real point, Manoj. And so I think in this current part of our relationship, I'm honoured to be collaborating with you tonight and going forward. So the book, and I'll try to be a little bit brief. Rajiv and I talked about this. What is the book about? Well, first of all, it's about many things. I think from part of it, for me, it's about questions. I come back to curiosity, and I'm drawn to questions. I think the quality of a good question massively outweighs a good answer in many ways. We need to think about that. And maybe the quality of the question drives the quality of the answer. So there are some very good questions in the book. I think it's also about breaking down boundaries, conceptual boundaries, limitations on the way we think, the way we've been brought up. It's about culture, cultures, plural, and I agree with the James Bond reference, which is it's a guidebook, it's a whistle-stop tour around places, but in many ways it's a whistle-stop tour around cultures. It's a journey in place and a journey in time, because I don't want to spoil too much of the book, but it does take you backwards as well as forwards. Particularly goes back, and I think there's value in going back. And the classic quote of, you know, those who choose to forget history are destined to repeat it. And there are a lot of challenges in our world at the moment, but maybe we should all pause to think a little bit about, have we been through some of this before, and yet we've not learnt anything? And I think there are some pointers in the book. The other thing is, the metaphor for me is I am, by the way, I'm a lapsed physicist, so I do understand some of the quantum mechanics in there, but as we progress more to the state of quantum thinking, I think anybody who says that they understand it clearly doesn't. I think that was a Richard Feynman quote. But, you know, there is a lot of good thinking going on, and there are pointers in the book, but don't be put off in reading the book because you don't understand quantum physics. I think the metaphor I would use is more of, though, it's chemistry of thought. It's putting a series of different ways of thinking into a petri dish, into a crucible, and then seeing how the reaction comes about. So it's about fusion. And I know we're going to talk in a moment about the impact on the corporate world and on public sector and things. But for me, what came out is this whole idea of this chemistry experiment of thinking, which everybody individually will come out, I think, with a slightly different end result. But the book encourages you to break down the borders and the limits and the boundaries And that would be my first challenge to everybody in the audience tonight is boundaryless thinking. Because I think that's what's going to be required to solve some of the problems facing us over the next series of generations.
Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. I think as an author, I think these guys have put even a much better way about the book. Thank you guys. Over to you.
No, I think I echo the thoughts of it being a James Bond movie. I had the same sort of view when I was reading the script. So, yeah, agree. Okay, I know you sort of briefly mentioned the second question, so we'll start with you this time, Andy. So you're all sort of corporate leaders with decades of experience. Do you think being a consciouspreneur is important in today's world, and how do you think someone can apply this?
I guess the simple answer to the first question is yes, absolutely. I think it's vital. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
It's at the bottom here.
At the bottom.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, apologies. Yeah, I think it's absolutely vital. And let me start by specifically addressing the corporate world. I think there are a lot of parallels with it's not alone in being relevant in that sense, which is a good thing. It's not about competitive concepts, but I think the concept that came to mind for me in the corporate world is we're going to have to think about moving purely from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. And we're going to have to come up with a new definition of how we want to balance those things around social, environmental, and financial and economic. The definition of sustainability that goes back to Gro Harlem Brundtland back in the 80s and the United Nations, that balance and the Venn diagram between social considerations, environmental considerations, and financial and economic. And I think it speaks to a number of those things. So I think it's in an area where it's adding a significant contribution to what people like Rajiv are doing in advising boards. To some extent, I am both in NGOs and in the corporate sector. But I'd say it goes well beyond the corporate sector. And I think particularly when you look at public policy, when you look at the